Physics ka professor.
Thank you, Speaker, sir. And thanks for the opportunity to present my views on the sustainable harnessing and advancement of nuclear energy for transforming India, which the short form is Shanti. And I think this is an oxymoron, sir. Nuclear energy has nothing to do with Shanti. You know, the powers that you deal with are extremely dangerous. So I think this is an oxymoron. Sir, the first thing that I want to start with is motivation, sir. Now, irrespective of being from wherever politics we are, the motivation is simple, is very different for private enterprise, and it's completely different for public enterprise, sir. Now, the private sector is answerable to the shareholders, sir. Every year, the private sector's pursuit is the pursuit of profit through economy and through business. It's always profit at the end of the day. So the bottom line matters for the private sector, irrespective of in any other business, sir. We have seen it in warfare scenarios. We have seen it in where humans have gone to inhuman ways to seek profit. So private enterprise in this particular scenario, it's still pursuit of profit, where public sector has a different motivation, sir. Public sector, it's state obligation. It's the obligation of the state. It's the prestige of the state to preserve and nurture and to showcase to the world that we're actually better off. And we have. In fact, in the last so many years, the atomic establishment in the country has been one of the finest in the country, and we have showcased ourselves to be a safe, responsible nuclear power. And now, one of the things is it's the commitment of the sovereign. So we take so much care, irrespective of the politics, to ensure that our image through the nuclear deterrence is actually shown to be a world, to be a responsible power. Now, I will also want to tabulate the difference between a private enterprise and public enterprise across various industries, sir, and the outcomes that has happened because of a policy change allowing private enterprise to come in. I'm not against private enterprise, sir, but I want to point out to House in certain sensitive segments where the pursuit of profit has actually caused harm rather than productivity in this country. You take energy, sir. Now, energy, there are a number of incidences where tragedies have happened, but let me stick to economics of the energy now. In the last 10 years, the cost of electricity that is being consumed by the consumers has actually increased by 25%, sir. When there's more private enterprise commissioning plants, which is a good thing, but the outcome of it is you have cost increase by 25%. On the public enterprise, we have superb enterprises like the NTPC, CIL, and GAIL, thanks to the stalwarts of liberalization who actually gave these products to us. Second, finance. In the industry finance, private sector has come up with innovation in finance in a number of ways. There have been so many good things, but I also want to point out that corporate write-offs in the last 10 years is increased by so many times, sir. I'm not trying to say that it is wrong, it's right, but an outcome of a policy which is allowing private players to pursue profit is actually corporate write-offs, where on the other side, we have companies, we have institutions, I would say institutions, public institutions, not even companies, like SBI and LSE, pursuing the public thing. The last thing that I want to, two more things, sir, is food and agriculture. You see, one of the outcomes of the private enterprise coming in is the shortage of fertilizer. I mean, it is because of so many other reasons, but one of the reasons is because the private has a very large share of fertilizer production in this country, and that is one of the consequences of having a shortfall in the last season of shortage of fertilizer. On the other hand, we have TN's horticulture mission, which is actually have policies to enable the largest per capita production of vegetables in the country, sir. The last point we have, in this case itself, nuclear, you have Fukushima and you had Chernobyl happen, which again is Fukushima is again a private enterprise, sir. Japan, a country with much higher technical capabilities because of their history, has actually shut nuclear production for a long period of time. So I want the House to note that even with technical expertise, this has to handle with utmost caution. And now we have on the other side, public enterprise of Kalpakkam, sir. Kalpakkam Nuclear Energy, where fast breeder reactors technology have been pursued, and it's still safe, and no incidences have been reported in the Kalpakkam, sir. Now, a very important point is the risk profile, right? Whenever our country has, is open, it's liberal, it's trading in dollars, we're exporting, we're importing. One of the things is that this bill opens up litigation to international forums. Previously, it was supposed to be within the jurisdiction of this country, and our courts had jurisdiction over nuclear incidences. What I want to point out here is this, sir, that it will have an implication when our private enterprise or when a country borrows in dollars, because our risk profile is also tied up to any of the litigation that may come up in the future, and because litigation and insurance is about future products, it's about a future risk. So the risk profile of our country, because of it being open up to international forums, is going to increase the cost of borrowing in international markets, and hence our exports are going to be expensive. I want the House to note that also, sir. Now, the next point that I want to note out is liability. The liability regime in this particular bill is actually pro-operator. The government has reasons to make it pro-operator because they want to say that, we want better technologies to come, we want better operators to come, we want large players to come. Yes, we all agree. But there are certain things which actually you should note, where the AERB, the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, is given a statutory backing, which is long due, which is important. But there are certain provisions which a government can instruct ARB to. So the autonomous nature of ARB on a statutory role is actually short-circuited in this particular bill, sir. I would want the attention to happen. Now, there are strict time limits on claims. Anywhere in the country, sir, anywhere in the world also, whenever nuclear energy is present, there's always claims and counterclaims because of the nature of technology involved and its sensitivity. Now here, the government has come up with a particular section that says that any of the claims must be pursued through the claims commissioners. You can't approach the court system or the judiciary here. Again, what the government intends to do is basically say, look, we have given you a separate infrastructure so as to go to claims. But we know the history of claims, sir, and the jurisprudence in the country also. So there is enormous power, from the government to the operator to actually execute the project in spite of the claims. So there is a need for the government to clarify that they can actually be fair to the claimants if there is any. Now, that is under clause 70, sir, where there is no, clause 70 says there is no individual settlement. Individually, you can't go and say, look, I have a claim. It will all come from a consolidated fund. So they have to group all the victims or claimants together and have, the claims commissioner decides a certain amount, and it has to be divided by the largest denominator, which is the number of people there, sir. So an individual claim has no merit here. So what the bill does is actually remove the individual rights, which you and I know, sir, it is enshrined in the constitution of the country, and it's sacred to all of us now. Now, clause 54 has fixed tariffs. The government wants to give clarity to the operator, I presume, because that is why they brought in clause 37. But it has a fixed rate, sir. It's not market linked. And any fixed rate by a public institution like the government, sir, it is actually prone to misuse, because fixing of a rate, has completely, in the gray area. It is not market linked. It's not determinable. And there are so many factors which are in the gray area. So the government must come up with a clear plan actually fixing the price, sir. Now, the most important point, which my colleagues have already pointed out, is there is a staggered limit on the claims that can happen. The largest or the highest cap is 3,000 crores, sir. 3,000 crores. I will tell you why that 3,000 crores is minuscule compared to the project size, which I will explain in the next section, which is the economics. Now, members would note that anywhere in the world, nuclear fuel or the nuclear energy is only stopgap, sir. I mean, the Honorable Minister, when he started, he said that the wind energy and the solar energy had a lot of fluctuations because of the nature of the, the technology involved and the grid system. And he said nuclear energy will be a stopgap measure. So I would thank the minister actually reminding the House that nuclear energy is a stopgap. And I will explain the mechanics or the economics to understand why stopgap and the economy doesn't match. Now, the cost of nuclear versus different energies, sir. Any project has tangible cost and intangible cost. Tangible cost is something that you can measure. Intangible costs are those costs which is especially environmental factors, which comes through environmental clearance and the green tribunals that have been set up. Now, cost of production, capital expenditure. When you want to establish a nuclear power station or a nuclear project, cost per megawatt is 30 crores, sir. 30 crores per megawatt. Coal is approximately 12 crores, sir. You can still do it lower, but 12 crores is, taking the latest technology in place, making sure clean fuel is available. So it's clean energy is available. So it's 12 crores, sir. Solar is 4.5 crore per megawatt. So this is the current, even in Indian conditions, because, foreigners, it's still very expensive because of the statutory norms and safety norms. Now, if you take the levelized cost of electricity, putting all the numbers together, I'm not great at mathematics, sir, but if you ask me, give me one number, what is the cost of per unit of electricity? Now, the localized cost of electricity, LCOE is called, is rupees 5 per megawatt when it comes to a nuclear station above 100 megawatts. Sir. You need that minimum scale because it doesn't come up with the investment if it's 1 megawatt or 2 megawatt. Now, for coal, it's 5.5 today in India's term. And for solar, it's 3 megawatt. Now, coming back to the stopgap, what the Honorable Minister had pointed out, sir. Now, this project of 30 crore per megawatt, a stopgap, is like a UPS in your home, right? You would spend 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs for your home, but the UPS will be less than 50,000 for the initiative that it provides, which is a stopgap, which is ensure that there is uninterrupted power supply, but on a larger scale through nuclear source. Now, when you take this stopgap measure, the cost of each of the project, that too linked to the dollar, because all of your technologies and the fuel come from dollar, not rupees, you are actually exporting or exposing the risk of the country to multitude of factors other than just cost of production, sir, which is actually intangible. We still don't know the intangible cost because advanced powers, where they have a matured nuclear industry, still haven't figured out the intangible cost, and you still have, so many litigations in the, Western Hemisphere on nuclear energy. Now, because of this exposure to the dollar, sir, you have to tap the international markets. The domestic markets cannot fund the size and scope of this particular project, and suppliers of technology will also want a stopgap because they will tap the dollar. Now, 1% increase in the interest rate, if from the borrower, impacts the cost of electricity production by 0.40 paise per kilowatt hour, sir. And you can multiply it by the thousands of the megawatt the government wants to bring in, it will actually make the project not feasible, sir. A 10% increase, which is about 5 rupees, and a 40 paise increase is a 10% increase, sir. Would you think the consumers or the government or the private industry? I don't think it's going to be liable, sir. The last point that I want to explain to the members of the House is safety. Now, the power of plutonium-2, there are a number of fuels, sir, but an isotope, which is a variation of the nuclear fuel, plutonium-239, which is actually used by India in the fast breeder reactors in the country, we have got very good expertise, has been the fuel, sir. Now, safety-wise, a lot of members don't know that there's something called the half-life period of this material, sir. And half-life period is the amount of time required for the energy to be reduced into half. So if you produce 1 kilowatt, if 1 gram of fuel produces 1 megawatt of power, that 1 gram to reduce to 500 kilowatts, sir, takes 24,100 years, sir. 24,000 years, sir. We are not even, forget 5 years, 10 years, 24,000 years, sir. One small incident that on this, of course, the government is pursuing on the safety also. One small error is an error of 24,000 years, sir. It is epochs. So also, I'm finishing, sir. Last point, the geological storage of spent fuel in this country. We have still got geological storage, sir. Geological storage is the storage where you keep this fuel. Spent fuel, which can't be given outside, is approximately 10,000 years, sir. Forget about the policy continuity on 50 years, 100 years. 10,000 years, are you going to have a policy continuity? There are a number of risks, sir. I'm finishing last point, sir. The number of risks in this bill where the government's intention is to bring up innovation, bring up energy production. I think the government is at risk in terms of safety, in terms of statutory routes, and in terms of getting our engineers to actually come up to date. So I request the government to take note that there is a lot of risks which is opening our country into foreign, risks. So I request the government to revisit or revise to JPC. Thank you for the opportunity, sir.